Ho, ho, ho! So, I just wanted to say sorry about the whole nosy, spicy thing. I could see that you were not a fan.
I was not. No, I was not.
I mean, maybe you might be getting a bit of cabin fever, you know.
I understand that, but we need to limit the suffering in this house.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Speaking of which...
Oh, yes, absolutely. I can do so. Well, with that apology in mind, and also considering where we are in the season, I have taken the liberty of replacing our Nosy Spicy with Mincey-Pieszy.
Oh! Oh yes!
I've had them stashed somewhere safe in case we were still here a year on.
That was very clever of you.
I know. I mean, who'd have thought there's so much space in your jowls? How is it?
It's fine. It's fine.
Awesome. Mince pie. Hello once again. We move ever closer to Christmas, and we are here to try and build a second film.
It's going to be interesting.
Thank you, first of all, to our recent new subscribers. You are all very, very, very much welcome.
Hi, thank you.
And before we begin, and I'm going to just hold this here probably for the whole thing and never get around to eating it, but before we launch into Act 1 of Wonderful, a very quick shout out for a channel that I discovered recently, which is called The Diary of a New Dungeon Master. That's it. Sorry, I don't.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I don't know the guy's name. Unfortunately, it wasn't on his channel, but he's basically cataloguing the creation of his own homebrew world for D&D 5th Ed, eventually leading into the actual campaign itself. It's really worth a look. It's interesting seeing, somebody at work and how they're sort of creating stuff. It's also quite cool as well because he seems to be using the world building site World Anvil to do it.
Oh, cool.
Which I've been meaning to start using myself, and being able to sit and watch somebody else do it is quite a nice.
I do have an account, but I haven't used it yet.
Yeah, I've done bits. I did bits for Chill, and I did start doing a little bit for Vampire as well, but I never got that far with it.
Mm-hmm.
Just time. You're so demanding. But yes, do go check it out. As always, there will be a link in the description below. Again, he seems to be sort of quite a new YouTuber. Throw him some love. I'm gonna eat this. So over to you.
I'm sorry for that. So that leaves us at the beginning of a new movie. So we have Wonderful to take care of. The tale of George Bailey and his time at the IBC Corporation.
So yeah, how is this going to work? Because he's not Francis Cross.
No, he's not.
He's not impoverished.
No, he's not. I don't know if it works, but I have a thought. So, George Bailey is George Bailey, and he's a man who tends to like to please people.
Yes,
he tries very hard whenever he's given a job to do. I'm imagining the problem is not George himself, but his job and what it's causing his friends and family to experience.
Okay.
I mean, for example, the entire story of Scrooge revolves around the impending broadcast of a live show on Christmas Eve that is forcing people to view.
So we're saying that that's been forced on him in this as opposed to it being his idea?
Yes. I'm kind of suggesting that the villain of this story isn't George himself, but people like Prescott and Bryce and people who push him into a corner where he has to do certain things. And he's causing the people around him to suffer because of it at the holiday times.
Okay. Yeah.
So, given that premise, we might have to do a Because Hollywood. And so that the ghosts are not convincing him, coming to visit him to convince him to change his ways, but are instead visiting him to convince him of the harm he's causing those around him by his yes man behaviour. They're still trying to convince him to change his ways, but for different reasons.
Okay.
Do you think that would work?
It does work, and it does work because even though this is in the plot of Scrooged, in the same way that It's a Wonderful Life is a Christmas story, but not a Christmas Carol Christmas story, we can afford to blur the lines a little. We don't have to follow the format as much.
We've already done that a little bit with with It's a Scrooged Life.
Yeah, we've allowed that to bleed through into there. So yeah, so it should feel like a more unique, wholesome Christmas experience with a bit of 80s comedy thrown in as well.
Yeah, so my premise is that George Bailey is a well-meaning man who doesn't know how to say no and is causing his family and friends to suffer because of it.
Got the job as the president's job because he's a face that the people trust, so he's almost like a proxy.
And he always bends over backwards to make sure things get done.
I do like it because I must admit I had nothing. So yes.
Oh, well, I'll take that.
This is one of those rare occasions where I was stumped and I was like, without some kind of very loose framework, I would have probably had to say we're done before we even get started. But yeah, no, that makes sense. It's something to work for, something to build from.
Which even makes sense. So his old manager coming to tell him, look at me, $1,500 hookers and golf games.
Yeah,
I should have been doing the right thing. I should have been living with my family and
sharing. So that all still works.
Sharing my love, and it still works because he's the guy that raised him into that position.
I know it does happen later in Act 1. We're still at the very start of the film, but I can imagine again, just imagining Jimmy Stewart in the scene with the censor. And she says, you can see her nipple, and I can just imagine Jimmy going, really? Where? Like that.
What?
Okay. So we begin, as the film begins, with that montage of their Christmas ads.
Yes.
With Lee Majors as the gun-toting snowman, basically.
Yeah.
So do we want to say that Cross's introduction, or Cross's ad,
yes,
is the one that they want to run? He's done the other one?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. I just realised we've got a problem with Lauder milk, but never mind.
Okay, yes, I suppose. Well, I mean, unless we kind of make him...
No, that makes sense, because that's... I want people to... Family, Christmas, and joy and things. And then it's like, but Mr. Prescott said...
Yeah, that we have to do this. So is Prescott that fires him? I don't think George would fire him, would he?
Well, that's why we've got a problem with Lauder milk. I can't see how anyone would fire him. Because in this scenario, he's doing what Prescott wants.
But he hasn't, though. Oh, no, I suppose he has, because they still run the thing, don't they? Unless part of the reason that Prescott comes to see him isn't just to talk about cats and dogs.
Yeah.
It's got back to him that Lauder milk hasn't done his job. That's why he fires him. You had one job. You had to convince him to go with this, and you failed. Now I'm going to have to come down from the 70th floor and do it myself.
Oh, right, okay. And Loudermilk, of course, blames George.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because by that time he's had a few drinks. If he'd have just done what we wanted him to do
because the people who kick him out say the order came from upstairs, and they point upwards.
Yes.
So Elliot thinks that he's been fired by George.
And because we're going with George being, again, very earnest and well-meaning, he happens to be standing at his window looking out at the time.
And he even gives him away.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas.
So that comment to his secretary is, oh, Loudermilk's leaving early today. He's confused by it.
Yes!
Oh, yes!
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 All right, that works. We're getting somewhere. I think I'm going to run out of wine before... it's fine. I think I have beer in supply somewhere in the corner.
What? Do you want a bit more?
No. Take it.
Oh, good.
Take it.
Yummy. It also establishes, again, that there is that comedy element into it as well, which is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Loudermilk's leaving early today.
Yeah. And then we get so then we get the Christmas list.
Christmas list and then meeting the boss.
Mm-hmm. So it's not that he's a miser and will only give somebody a towel or a VCR.
It's the other way around. Grace is the one.
All I was going to say is that's all the budget that they've given him. They can't afford anything else.
I was going to say Grace says, Mr. Prescott says, we're allowed to give X or Y this year.
Yes, so yeah.
And then he has the meeting with Mr. Prescott and the conversation about making TV for pets.
Mm-hmm.
Lunatic.
Yes.
Then we have meeting his brother and being given an award he doesn't want.
Okay, so meeting his brother would be the same? Well, no, it's...
No, because that's the whole I hate Christmas speech.
So in this case, it's instead it's going to be, I'm sorry, I'm too busy, I've got this. Yeah, but we're expecting...
I can't.
Yeah, we're expecting you and Mary and the kids to come round. You know, we arranged it all. Well, Mary and the kids can go.
We've got live rehearsals.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
And again, are we going to say it's an innocent mistake that he takes the woman's cab?
No, I just don't think we have that.
We don't have that. That's fair enough. Yeah, it's because that's just labouring the point at the time, isn't it? In the film, so. And then...
The first ghost.
Which is the one thing I suppose they didn't do in that version of A Christmas Carol. You don't get the initial warning. It's obviously you've got like the door knocker, don't you, in the story itself. They just sort of cut that out, which again...
No, they just did it in one scene.
Okay, so we have...
Then we have Grace and her family.
So we're saying the ghost scene is going to go the same.
Hmm?
Ghost scene is going to go the same?
Well, not the same, but it will be him laying out this new premise.
Do we need to... No, it's not supposed to be.
It's not too late to change. You can make your family happy.
Do we still want to maintain the point that they think, he is a good man. You are one of the, you're one of the good ones, George. You're falling into like a den of iniquity, if you like, if you don't do something about where you are in your life and how it's affecting the people around you. So we're saying that he dials the phone back home?
Yes, that makes sense. So calls Mary and he has that panicked...
because she doesn't answer. She's not at home, so where is she with the kids at that time of night?
Oh, nice touch. Yeah, I like that.
But as he's rushing her, as he goes, again, he probably go, I should really go. Oh, Mr. Bailey, we need you down on the floor for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But he should leave the message on the answering machine.
Mm-hmm.
Because that leads to Mary coming into work the next day.
It does.
Which is essentially we get to see Grace and her family and Calvin being used as a Christmas tree and all that stuff.
Yes.
And then we cut to the next morning. It's the early rehearsals. We've got the safety lady and Mary turns up on set.
So lots of...
So you get a similar sort of thing like, I've been thinking lately that I spend too much time at the... Blah, blah, blah. Hey, get out of here!
Yeah.
And, and then he starts shouting at Calvin and...
So again, the line about, have you tried to use staples?
Yes.
He's concentrating on Mary, he's not thinking.
It's not a cruel mention. No, it's just, and then he goes to lunch with Mr. Prescott and Bryce.
Yes.
And the highball moment happens.
So Bryce, in this, again, I suppose he still serves the same function.
He's that guy that's looking for his job. He's the fast talker, whereas George is that nice guy who gets things done by working hard.
Working hard, yeah.
This guy just goes, wow, 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 wow.
Cool. That kind of brings us almost up to...
Yeah, because the lunch happens. He has his eyeball incident, the flaming Alaska.
Yeah.
He runs out, gets into a taxi, and
we have our first spirit.
It's the Ghost of Christmas Past, and that's
it.
That's the end of the first act. So we got him out the door. Ha!
It's weird though, because back in the pitch meeting, you were saying that you thought Scrooged Life was going to be the harder one of the two.
Well, I thought I'd find a harder time finding redeeming qualities in him.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying it was the best, but we managed it. Whereas putting him into a Scrooge position is hard.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, you gotta really think about this right from the very beginning.
I mean, he is always a little bit sort of, I don't want to say bumbling isn't quite the right word, but
He's gangly.
Yeah, and he's a bit of a... he does seem to kind of stumble from one thing to the next without really ever being in control of his destiny.
Yeah.
And that's really to kind of ramp that up a bit more in this version to make it work.
He has a tendency to take a second or two to catch on to things.
Yeah.
He's not stupid. He's not the quickest.
It's like when we were doing It's a Scrooged Life. I imagine Cross would have caught on a lot quicker to this new reality.
Yes.
And would have understood what was going on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Cool.
So there we are.
But yes, there we are.
First act of Wonderful. There you go.
I was, again, as I said, as you probably guessed by now, I was a bit worried. I wasn't sure where this one was going to go, but we have made it work. We will be stuffing ourselves with mince pies for the weekend. There is plenty more room in my jowls.
Not the Jowls. Not the Jowls.
And thank you, Sam, for giving us the title of the episode. I will just take this opportunity. I should have probably done it at the beginning. I did forget. But I'm sure I'll remind you next Wednesday as well, and Friday as well next week. If you're new to the show, then what we tend to do is we will do 5 months of this wonderful, wonderful movie making, and then simply to appease the god of burnout, we will be taking a month off. So the show that will be going out on Christmas Eve will be the last of our ones for December, and then there won't be any more Maybe Movies until our pitch meeting at the beginning of February. There will be stuff on the channel, but we will keep you apprised of that as we go. If you want to know more about what's going on with us, then do please check out our Facebook page as well, the Maybe Movies Facebook page. Anyway, that was all I wanted to say. Thanks again for watching, and have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
As always, guys, take care of yourselves. DTFN.
Ba 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 ba.